Welcome to the deep dive. If you're thinking about starting a business, or maybe you already have, you know the legal stuff isn't just optional.
No, not at all. It's really foundational. Get it wrong, and, well, things can get messy fast.
It feels like a maze sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have this great idea, but then there's all this paperwork, rules, registrations.
Uh-huh. It could definitely feel overwhelming.
But understanding it is crucial, not just for compliance, but for actually building something solid.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. We've gathered a whole lot of material guides, articles, you name it all, about the legal essentials.
Right, covering everything from picking a structure right through to staying compliant long term.
Our goal here is really to, cut through that noise. We want to pull out the key takeaways from these sources and give you a clearer path.
A shortcut to understanding what you need to do and, maybe more importantly, why it matters for your business.
Think of it as a roadmap. Yeah, distilled from all that material.
Okay, let's jump in. The first big fork in the road, based on everything we looked at, seems to be choosing the actual legal structure for your business. Let's unpack that.
It really is the foundational choice, and one of the biggest things it impacts right away is liability.
Hmm.
How protected are you personally?
Right, and the sources really highlighted the difference there, like a sole proprietorship versus, say, a corporation.
Huge difference. With a sole proprietorship, the sources make it clear. There's no legal separation. You are the business.
Which means your personal stuff, your house, your savings could potentially be on the line if the business has debts or gets sued.
That's the risk, yes. Now compare that to a corporation. The sources explain it's treated as a completely separate legal entity.
Like its own person, legally speaking.
Exactly. And that creates what's called limited liability. It puts up a shield, generally speaking, between the business's debts and your personal assets. Not foolproof, but a critical distinction.
So it's much more than just a name. It's about building a legal container.
Precisely. And this choice, as the materials point out, has this ripple effect. It influences taxes, control, how you get funding, selling shares, for instance, even your long-term growth options.
And there are other structures too, right? The sources mentioned partnerships.
Yes, partnerships, shared ownership, shared profits. But the flip side mentioned is potential disagreements. And often, you're both personally liable, sometimes even for your partner's actions.
Oof. Okay, and then LLCs, limited liability companies.
Right. LLCs are presented as sort of a hybrid. You get that limited liability like a corporation, which is a big plus.
But maybe simpler.
Often, yeah. More flexibility in how you're taxed, usually less complex administration than a full corporation. But maybe not the best. If your main goal is raising lots of capital through stock sales, that's more corporation territory.
So it really sounds like, based on the sources, there's no single best answer here.
Definitely not. It really comes down to your specific situation, your risk tolerance, tax goals, how you want to manage things, where you see the business going. It needs careful thought right at the start.
Okay, makes sense. So structure decided. What's next in actually making the business real, legally speaking? Names, numbers, document.
Exactly, making it official. That usually starts with registering the business name.
Which is tied to the structure you chose.
Often, yes. You'll register the legal name with the state, and if you want to operate under a different name, a trade name, you often need to file that too, commonly called a DBA or doing business as.
Got it. And then the critical part, tax ID numbers.
Oh, absolutely crucial. The main one everyone encounters is the EIN, Employer Identification Number. It comes from the IRS.
And the sources describe it as basically a social security number for the business.
That's a great way to think about it. You absolutely need an EIN if you're going to have employees. Plus, it's required for corporate or partnership tax returns and, really importantly, for opening a business bank account.
Which is vital for keeping finances separate, right?
Essential. Avoids mixing personal and business funds. And beyond the federal EIN, you might also need a state tax ID. Depends on your state and what you're doing, especially sales tax.
So these numbers are like the business's official ID for money matters.
Pretty much, for taxes, banking, any official financial dealings.
Okay, name, numbers. Then there are the actual formation documents.
Right, the papers that legally create the entity. For corporations, it's usually the Articles of Incorporation.
And for LLCs?
Articles of Organization. These are generally filed with the state, typically the Secretary of State's office. They put your business officially on the map and outline its basic setup.
So that's the public-facing document. What about internal rules?
Good point. For LLCs, while maybe not always mandatory to file, the sources strongly recommend creating an operating agreement.
That one stays internal.
Yes, it's an internal guidebook, but it's vital. It spells out who owns what percentage, how management works, how profits and losses are split, the rules of the road for the owners. It can head off a lot of future disputes.
Okay. Structure, check. Entity setup, check. Now, what about the day-to-day legalities, actually operating the business? Licenses, permits, location rules.
Right. Now we're into ongoing operations. Step one is getting the right business licenses and permits. The sources stress, this is about ensuring you're allowed to do what you do where you do it. Federal, state, local, they all might have requirements.
And this is where it gets really specific to the business, right? No single checklist fits all.
Exactly. It varies massively. Depends on your industry, food service versus consulting versus construction. Depends on your location, city, county, state rules differ. Depends on your activities, selling alcohol, handling hazardous materials, etc.
So things like a general city business license, maybe a state sales tax permit?
Could be. Or specific professional licenses, health permits, environmental permits. You really have to do your homework for your specific situation.
And separate from those operational permits are the rules about the physical place itself, zoning and building codes.
Yes, distinct but related. The sources make a good distinction. Zoning is about land use.
Yeah.
What activities are allowed where? Can you run this type of business in this location? It covers things like residential versus commercial zones, building height, density.
Sort of organizing the neighborhood?
Kind of, yeah. Orderly development. Building codes, on the other hand, are about the structure itself. Safety, accessibility, materials, construction standards.
Like fire safety, electrical, plumbing, making sure the building is safe for that use.
Exactly. How it's built, how well it's built. Zoning is what and where. Building codes are how and how well. And usually you need permits for both before you build, renovate, or even just occupy a space for business.
Okay, this is a lot already. Setting up, operating permissions. Now, what about the people involved? Employees. And protecting against risks. Labor laws and insurance seem key here.
Absolutely critical areas. If you hire anyone, even one person, you immediately step into the world of labor law compliance. The material we reviewed emphasizes this is all about protecting employee rights and ensuring fair treatment.
What kinds of things fall under that umbrella?
Oh, a wide range. The sources list things like paying at least minimum wage, handling overtime correctly, providing a safe workplace. Think OSHA standards, rules against discrimination, child labor laws, and sometimes requirements for benefits, like leave or contributing to unemployment insurance.
And this stuff changes, right?
Constantly. That's a major point in the sources. Federal, state, even local laws evolve. Staying informed isn't just advisable, it's crucial.
Seems like a potential minefield for businesses.
It can be daunting. But compliance isn't just about dodging penalties or lawsuits, though that's important. It's also about attracting good employees, building a positive culture, and maintaining your reputation. It's an investment, really.
Makes sense. And alongside managing people legally, there's managing risk more broadly. That's where insurance comes in.
Yes, business insurance. The sources describe it simply as financial protection. You pay premiums, and the insurer helps cover costs from unexpected negative events, accidents, property damage, lawsuits. It's core risk management.
Not just for huge disasters, but everyday risks too.
Exactly. Needs vary, of course, but some common times mentioned are general liability insurance that covers things like a customer slipping and falling or you accidentally damaging someone's property. It's pretty foundational.
And for employees.
Workers' compensation is key there. It covers medical bills and some lost wages if an employee gets hurt or sick because of their job. Figuring out your specific risks is the first step to getting the right coverage.
Okay, structure, setup, operations, people, insurance. What about protecting the unique stuff? The brand, the ideas, intellectual property.
Ah, yes. Protecting your intangible assets. For your brand name, your logo, maybe a tagline, the things that tell customers this is us, the main tool discussed is a trademark.
So a trademark identifies your stuff in the market.
Precisely. It distinguishes your goods or services from competitors. It can be a word, phrase, symbol, design, even a sound or color sometimes.
And you register that. How does that work, roughly?
The sources outline a process, usually with a government office like the USPTO in the U.S. You figure out exactly what you want to trademark. Then, and this is critical, you search to make sure someone else isn't already using something confusingly similar for related products or services.
That search sounds important. Avoids problems later.
Absolutely crucial due diligence. Then you file an application, pay fees, it gets examined, maybe published for others to potentially oppose, and then hopefully registered. Registration gives you much stronger legal rights.
Okay. And the sources also mentioned patents briefly. Different thing.
Totally different. Patents protect inventions, new machines, processes, compositions of matter, much more complex process typically. But the goal is similar, protecting a unique creation. Trademarks are for brand identity, patents for inventions.
Got it. So we've covered a ton of ground here. Structure, setup, operating rules, people, protection, IP. But it's not like you do this once and you're done, right?
Not at all. That's a consistent theme in the material. Compliance is ongoing. It's woven into the fabric of running the business day to day, year after year.
What does that look like, practically?
It includes things like filing annual reports with the state to keep your entity active, managing all your tax obligations, federal, state, local, paying on time, and keeping really good internal records. That's vital for taxes, audits, potential legal issues.
And keeping an eye on the outside world, too. Changes in laws.
Definitely. Laws change. Regulations get updated. You have to have a way to stay informed about things that affect your industry or location.
And the payoff for staying on top of all this.
Well, the sources point to reduced legal risk, obviously, avoiding fines, lawsuits, but also enhancing your reputation. Customers, partners, even regulators trust businesses that play by the rules. It builds credibility and contributes to long-term stability.
So to wrap this part up for you, the listener, we've journeyed through these core legal areas, choosing that initial structure, getting officially set up with names and numbers, navigating the licenses and permits for operations, understanding labor laws and insurance, and protecting your brand with trademarks.
By getting a handle on these key points from the sources, you really are laying a much stronger, more resilient legal foundation for whatever you're building. It's about being proactive, not just reacting when something goes wrong.
It really does feel like a powerful shortcut to navigating these complex waters.
Absolutely. And, thinking about everything we've discussed, the initial structure choice, the layers of permits, the evolving labor laws, the need for ongoing vigilance, it makes you consider something fundamental. Given how dynamic the legal landscape is and how requirements differ so much, maybe the real challenge isn't just learning the rules once, but building a system or even just a mindset of continuous legal awareness right into the core of how the business operates. It's less a checklist, more an ongoing discipline.
A really important thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the legal essentials for your business journey.